Welcome once again. I am Erika Sugarmon, Shelby County Commissioner and educator for 26 years. And tonight we have some special guests as we celebrate Hispanic culture impacts. First, we have the one and only Noah Nordstrom. Nordstrom is a high school Spanish teacher in Memphis, Tennessee, and running to represent House District 83, which encompasses parts of Memphis, Germantown, and Cordova. Nordstrom began his educational career in Mexico City as an English teacher. He went to earn a bachelor's degree in international affairs and applied Spanish from East Tennessee State University. Now he serves as a Spanish teacher within the Memphis Shelby County School District. Nordstrom fights for educational equity in the classroom and his community. Welcome, Noah.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Sugarman. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Something that we may not know about you?
Let's see, we did a great intro right there. One thing you may not know about me is I love to sing. I write songs in English and Spanish, play the guitar and the piano. Yeah, I like to do that sometimes when I'm not teaching or campaigning.
That is wonderful. I have no talent in singing. Thank you. Next up, we have Maria Oceja. Oceja identifies as a Latina who's also an experienced community organizer, skilled artist, and visionary based in Memphis. Maria manages and facilitates the Leaders of Color Fellowship. In her professional work, Maria led the Shelby County Youth Council and supported the Bridge Builders Change program. She also co-founded and organized Vecindarios 901, a local rapid response team responding intervening with ICE raids. In her spare time, she focuses on creating healing spaces within her family and closest community members. Maria is a graduate of Wellesley College, an alumna of Leaders of Color Fellowship, and she also an alumnus of Emerging Leaders Fellow with the City University of New York. Welcome, Maria.
Hi, thank you so much for having me,
Thank you so
Commissioner.
much. And so, can you tell us a little bit about Vecindarios 901?
Yeah, definitely. So Vecindarios 901 began in 2019 with a rapid response hotline to respond to ICE activity in our communities. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, or maybe fortunately, we did see a decrease in ICE raids, and we have been able to provide resources to community regarding know your rights information, connections to legal supports, and other resources around the community so that they're able to stay here and establish a
That's
family.
wonderful. That's wonderful. And I'm glad it's decreased. It has it's also since the COVID-19 pandemic is over, has it increased or is still on the decline?
We are actually, yes, ma'am, we are actually
Really?
starting to see an uptick with ICE activity, particularly because of the political climate and the upcoming presidential election. So we have started to see more ICE activity in the
And if
community
you don't mind
recently.
sharing like information, how people get involved with the Senderos 901.
Um, so we would always love more support. So definitely you can shoot a message to Vecindarios 901 Facebook page, and we will definitely reach out to you because we need more support. So yes, please reach out
Thank you
to
so
our Facebook
much.
page.
And last but not least, the one and only Dr. Elena Delavega. Delavega is a professor of social work at the University of Memphis, where she teaches and researches poverty and social welfare policy. Dr. Delavega has created a body of work consisting of over 38 peer-reviewed publications, over 100 reports, newspaper magazine articles, book chapters, fact sheets, and translation. Close to 200 presentations. I've been to a few of them, including international presentations, keynote addresses, and a TED Talks talk focused on the Blame Index. Additionally, she serves on the board of the Memphis Coalition for the Homeless and the board of Impact Memphis. In 2018, She collaborated with the National Civil Rights Museum to produce the report on the state of Black Shelby County, Memphis Poverty Report, Memphis since MLK, in conjunction with commemorative activities surrounding the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. And most recently, I received her latest version of Volume 13, Memphis Poverty Fact Sheets. And unfortunately, things have not gotten better. But welcome, Delavega, and tell us something about yourself.
Oh, good evening, Commissioner Sugarmon. Thank you very much. The camera's not working right. I can actually cook Mexican food. I can make really good tinga and really good guacamole and really good other Mexican things. So I'm a very good Mexican cook.
Oh, great. And we're going to be on first name basis, so you can call me Erika. Erika.
I will call you Erika.
Thank you. Okay, the first question goes to Maria. How do Latino-owned businesses in Shelby County contribute to the cultural diversity and enrichment?
Wow, that's such a great question. So let me go ahead and translate. Para todos los que están viendo a través de Facebook, la comisionada Erika Sugarmon preguntó cómo es que los negocios latinos...
She's frozen.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go on, and hopefully she can unfreeze.
A la economía.
Okay, Maria, you're still frozen. So we're going to go on to Noah. Noah, as an educator, what are some of the ways our political and educational institutions can be more inclusive of Latino and first-generation American students?
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and translate that for you real quick. Y la pregunta es, ¿cuáles son una de las maneras que las instituciones políticas y educativas pueden ser más inclusivos de la comunidad latina y los americanos de primera generación? So I'll go ahead and answer that question. So one thing I see is language inclusivity. That's a really big thing for me. And I've heard a lot of different stories based on, I'll start with our educational systems. So for reference, I work at Overton High School, which has recently become a majority Latino school. And so our school has done a really good job in the last few years of really stepping up, making sure everything is translated so people know where they're going. We have a fully staffed department as far as our bilingual mentors who really help students, particularly students whose second language is English, really understand, what to do, where they're going, all those things. And so I think that's really important, where I've heard other cases from other schools that don't really have those services. And it's a lot harder for those students to really participate and integrate into the school. And in the same ways, I think our political institutions do the same. And I've seen some of that changing as far as a lot of candidates now making campaign materials in Spanish and other languages as well, being sort of make sure that all of their constituents can really understand and participate in the processes. So I think it starts with language inclusivity. And then also, I think particularly when we're looking at our political institutions, I don't think there's historically been extensive inclusion of new Americans as part of outreach. And I think that has started to change. We've seen recently, with Gabby Salinas elected, and she's done a lot of work around making sure that there's been more inclusion. But, a lot of times traditionally, politically, we see that the strategy is to go to people who've always participated and look to engage new people in the process, particularly, immigrants and first-generation Americans. And so I think that's really important to go out there and really build those connections and invite people into the political process. And in the same way, in our schools and our educational systems, being actively engaging the families and making sure that they're not only empowered.
And so, I was wondering, what do you teach, like the high school level, middle school level, or elementary level?
I teach high school level. So currently I teach all Spanish 2 classes at Overton High School.
Okay. And I teach also as a high school. And I was just wondering, because it's required by state law that all high schools have a voter registration drive. And I'm just curious, have y'all had one at your particular high school?
No, I haven't seen that happen yet. And I think that would be great because I do remember in high school when that happened. And I believe actually I registered to vote for the first time in high school. And so I think that would be really important. And going back to the point, making sure that's language inclusive and that
Right.
we are really making sure that all of our students are able to participate in those kind of activities.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Okay, next question, going back to Maria. How do Latina-owned businesses in Shelby County contribute to cultural diversity and enrichment?
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I lost connection earlier. I don't know what happened. I think that there's a lot of really great Latinx businesses around Memphis and Shelby County. There's grocery stores, there's restaurants, there's centers of community buildings such as El Mercadito or La Plaza Hispana out there. And actually in East Memphis, I want to say it's, or is it, that might be Commissioner Clay Bibbs' district. There's a lot of really great businesses. We have one of the largest radio stations in the Mid-South based here in Memphis. That is Radio Ambiente. I want to give a shout out to Butron Media. They have Radio Ambiente, they have La Jefa on the FM station. And so the way that these businesses contribute to our community is by, and the diversity is by sharing our cultural foods, our music. There's so much opportunity for people to learn about us. We have such a diversity of across Latin America of our culinary arts. For example, we have Honduran food, Mexican food, Guatemalan food, Colombian food, Venezuelan food. There's so much that you can find in the city, and people wouldn't really know that if you weren't connected. And you don't even have to leave Memphis to try some of the most authentic dishes. So I think there's a lot of really great prosperity and growth in Latinx business. And also, we've seen that development happen across Summer Avenue, right? Over the years, Summer Avenue has become one of these centers in Memphis where you can literally find all of these different cultural foods. But you know, we don't just stop at food, right? We also have art and music and dance, right? We have several musicians across the city. We have several artists creating spaces, such as this weekend. I want to give a shout out to the Por Vida Fest that is happening on Broad Avenue with local artists, local young Latinx artists that are bringing about community to honor their family who have passed due to gun violence.
Okay, she's frozen again.
And so there's a lot of really great.
Yeah, and there are a lot of festivals. Yeah, you mentioned a couple of them. What's some of the festivals that are coming up in the near future?
So I know that this weekend there is Latin Fest at Overton Square, hosted by Casa Teatro. Doriman Ferrer, the executive director, has done a really great job of promoting our culture in Latin Fest. I think this is going to be the 6th year. And then there's also the Por Vida Fest that is happening starting at 5 o'clock as well, happening. I want to say it's near Broad and Summer, between Hollywood and Summer. And that is also a festival that is hosted by young Latinx artists to promote business between local vendors and also promote knowledge about the gun violence that our community is also facing here. And so, and honor the lives of the people who have passed away. And I know that that's specific to one of the artist's family members as well. So, you know, it's just a really beautiful space as well, that a festival that is happening this weekend. And there's a couple of Hispanic Heritage Festivals. I think Mid-South Fair is going to be Hispanic Heritage Day on Sunday, September 22nd. Where there's going to be a variety of musicians that is actually organized by, again, Butron Media. So shout out to Yvette and Sergio Butron who are organizing that. And then I want to say there's also a jaripeo, but if you don't know what a jaripeo is, it's a really fun Mexican rodeo. So put on your cowboy boots, put on your cowboy hats, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yes, so I want to say all of that is happening to honor Hispanic heritage this weekend.
I love the Hispanic culture. My mother was a linguist. You know, she introduced us to the Spanish culture at a very, very young age. So I love, especially love the food.
Yeah, and I also want to add one last thing is that, we have a lot of people who work in construction, a lot of people who work in building the roads, right? And these are amazing businesses that are also helping the city grow. And so we have, when you see people building outside, you see a lot of Hispanic community members leading those efforts. Or when you see people landscaping, those are also Hispanic businesses leading those efforts. So we have a lot to contribute, and we have been contributing a lot to our community here in Memphis.
That is true. A lot of my students, for example, their fathers, have construction companies, and so after school they go and work, for their fathers, their parents. And so also want to encourage, Latina business owners to also get certified, with not only Shelby County government, but the city government as well as the school system, because we do have minority programs for business owners so that they can get government contracts.
Oh, that's really good. And I think that, the more we share out with community members, more people will definitely submit those applications, because I think that right now there is a gap between connecting those resources to those entrepreneurs in the Hispanic community. But I would say that our community is very entrepreneurial.
Yes.
They come here looking for the American dream, and they make it happen. And so that's one of the things, right, that I love about being a Memphian Mexican is that I got the Memphis hustle, but I also got the Mexican hustle. So I love it.
Thank you so much. And next we have Dr. Elena Delavega. As a socialist, can you speak to some of the issues that motivate Latino voters in Shelby County, and how do these differ from other minority groups?
So one of the things, let me translate first, los asuntos que motivan a la comunidad latina en Memphis para votar de una manera u otra, ¿qué es lo que les importa? So what motivates Latinos in general is the economy. Like Maria said very clearly, we are a very entrepreneurial group, and so what are the supports for small businesses? The problem with Latinos is when we talk about Latinos, we're not talking about a monolithic group. We have as many motivations as there are people. So that is one of the things that we need to think about. What might motivate somebody who is deeply Catholic versus what might motivate somebody who's left Venezuela versus somebody who came from Mexico, somebody who has been here many generations, and somebody who's just immigrated and just came into this area. The unifying factor is the economy, though. What are the things that are going to make those small businesses thrive? So when we talk about universal healthcare, do we talk about the importance of universal healthcare to small businesses and to really providing equality of opportunity for small businesses and the ability to compete against large corporations? What are the things that we are offering that will support particularly those small businesses? And when we think about policies, if we think about the policies in a way that will support small businesses. So when we can think of small loans with low interest and things that are social justice can also be social justice for small businesses and for people like all of these Mexicans and Latino immigrants who are very entrepreneurial, and social justice can support them, in particular against those very large corporations. So that's the conversation we need to have. That's how we need to frame the issues. We're very interested in businesses. Definitely, like Maria mentioned, the summer corridor in all the businesses and how it's thriving. And we can see in the Memphis Poverty Fact Sheet, Hispanics are increasing their median income. It increased by 50%. So it's huge. Latinos and Hispanics are doing well. How can we help them continue doing well and continue doing better in the future, particularly as small business owners? The other thing is language. Absolutely, like Noah said, and this is another thing people talk about. We need to communicate with people in their language, and the community, the government needs to be able to speak to people in their language and to communicate, listen to them, and speak to them in their language.
In fact, I'm glad you brought that up because the Shelby County governments, we're just now getting closed caption. And I've been fighting for it since I've been a commissioner. And I said, make sure that it has translation capabilities because you're leaving out, groups of people, and so that's a huge issue across government. It's not taking consideration, and also involving the different communities. So I'm glad you brought that up. Now, also, what other barriers do Latino voters in Shelby County face in exercising their rights? What initiatives are in place to address these challenges? And what comes to mind, a lot of times you see the barriers like in Atlanta, Georgia, when they had the exact match where your voter registration card had to exactly match your driver's license. And the purpose of that was to exclude, in particular, the Latina and Hispanic community, because if it didn't have an accent, like on the voter's registration card, as it did the driver's license, it wasn't an exact match, then you were excluded. So what other barriers do you see in voting, and how can we overcome them?
One of the issues is, of course, citizenship. So citizenship drives are important. So me ha preguntado que cuáles son las barreras que la comunidad latina puede encontrar para poder votar. Y una de las más importantes es personas que pueden ser ciudadanas y no se han hecho ciudadanas. Es una cosa que tenemos que hacer inmediatamente. So a lot of people could have voted. It's too late now for this election, but there is always a next election. So those citizenship drives, there are barriers to citizenship that include the exam, the citizenship exam, the English exam. So offering those classes would be very useful. But there's also a fear of, am I doing this right? Do I have the legal right to do this? How do I do this? So legal clinics that help people complete those documents, submit them, those would be an incredible support for this community. And now that they are American citizens, they can vote. So voter education is definitely one of them. The other issue has been that if the family has historically not been able to vote, they may not have that culture. So speaking to particularly younger generations about the importance of voting and explaining to them the issues and how the policies that are social justice focused will help them in their small businesses, will help them in buying a house, will help them in thriving economically. That is what we need to do.
Okay.
I do want to add, if I can,
Sure.
to this question. So I have recently become a little bit more involved in electoral politics. And one of the things that I've noticed as particularly this summer leading up to the August 1st primaries was that the apathy that we experience in the, American community, imagine that times 10 in the Latinx community. And it's not because they don't think that voting matters, because actually a lot of people, when they come from their home country, they actually participate in their democracy. But when they come to the United States, because there is very little representation in electoral politics, there is no excitement to participate. So this summer, right, we saw 2 Latinx candidates. One of them won. So now we have the first state representative elect in the history of Shelby County, right, which is huge, right? Huge shout out to Gabby Salinas for that. And one of them did not win, right? He was an appointed school board member. And as we were evaluating the data, I was also supporting a District 2 school board campaign. And so as we were evaluating the data, right, for board member Natalie McKinney now, we noticed, right, that the geographical demographics of District 2, which is a huge Latinx population. For people who don't know, District 2 is Summer Avenue, Jackson Avenue, Macon Road, right, Graham, like all of these, like this is a very predominant Hispanic community or Latinx community. However, the data only shows that about 1% of the people who are registered to vote who are Latinx actually vote. And so that is a very low number, right? And so across the county, we saw low voter turnout on August 1st. And so not only do we need to figure out like why are people not voting, right, but now we need to also think about why is the Hispanic community not voting. And it's because what I heard as I was out there was, well, people don't listen to our concerns. We don't have anybody that we're excited about. The people that the people that are running, not enough of us are voting to be able to support them. And so like Noah mentioned, right, being able to connect with community members in their language, being able to speak to their issues. One of the issues that we were able to highlight as we were campaigning in District 2 school board race was the access to language supports in schools, right? We have a lot of parents coming into schools like Kingsbury High School, Jackson Elementary, Treadwell, who don't speak the language or who don't speak English and are not treated the way that constituents should be treated when they're entering a public service building. So, and so a lot of that, right, there is discrimination, right? There is prejudice. There is some sort of nationalism when it comes to representing the United States, right? But and because of that, there's an exclusion of the community that does not speak English. And so because of that, I think that there's a lot of concern that, well, nobody cares about us. Nobody hears our voice. So why do we even vote? Why do we even participate? It doesn't matter. And so definitely we need to increase that voter engagement and also let people know, hey, your voice does matter. Even if you can't vote, right? You can still connect with your commissioner. You can still connect with your state representative. You can still connect with your city council representative, right? And so one of the things that we did in the October 5th election of 2023, leading up to that, was that we hosted the first Latinx candidate forum. Several organizations came together, MICA, Leaders of Color, Fuerza, a whole bunch of different organizations came together to bring forth the first Latinx candidate forum. And it was a low attendance, but we did have about 30 community members or more in the room. Despite that, it was still a great way for community members to connect with those who were running for office and ask them, hey, if you're elected, what will you do to support the Latinx community, and how can I bring this message back to the people who know me? And I thought that was a very powerful way to connect and civically engage a community, a constituency that is not actively engaged on a regular basis.
Okay, so you mentioned Leaders of Color and other organizations, and so also as far as emerging leaders as well. And my question then becomes, how do we get more individuals interested in running? I know there's Luis Mata, who's running for state representative 49, and he's awesome. I've been following him, but how do we get more Latino candidates involved in running for office?
That is a great question. And honestly, I'm still trying to figure it out too, because I think one of the ways is by, highlighting that we need an advocate that represents our needs, right? And not only that, right, but as we all know, running a campaign takes a lot of money, right? And so helping people build the confidence to fundraise, helping people build a winning campaign plan. And not only that, right? Because usually campaigns only focus on the constituents that vote actively in every single election. That constituency, that demographic is the more senior demographic between, I would say, 50 and up, or even 45 and up. And that's also a Black and white demographic. So how do we then engage recently registered voters that are also Hispanic, right? So not, right, we all know that engaging recently registered voters is a difficult task, but on top of that, add the layer and the intersectionality of being a Hispanic person.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a tall task, and I would love to be a part of figuring out how do we do that.
Well, Noah, that's a gateway for you. So you're on fire. Okay. So what inspired or motivated you to run for office as well as continue to keep your daytime job?
Well, honestly, just the tax on our public schools is what really got me into this, going in every day and seeing conditions that I don't think are adequate for our kids, and then seeing that they are also had a plan to defund our public schools even more. It really kind of put this fire in my belly, like, no, like if nobody's going to step up and, fight to change this, like I will. So that's really what got me into it. But yeah, I think kind of looping back into the question, like, how do we get more people to run for office? Exactly what we're saying is like, we got to connect it to like, I think there's a big problem in general of people seeing problems and not realizing that they can do things about it. I see that even with my students all the time. They kind of just have this like, oh, things are bad and nothing can change, right? But I think really planting that seed and that idea and saying, actually, here's how the system works and here's how change could be made, and here's what role you could play in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that definitely is, stepping up to run for office in some cases. And then, as was mentioned already, being there with the supports, because it's hard, it's difficult for me as, someone who was born and raised in the United States. Just as a young person, it's hard getting in there and kind of garner that support. Now imagine someone who doesn't, who have a background of like their family even being able to vote or voting, or, just totally new process. So I think, and I appreciate leaders of color and other organizations that are really putting in that work towards cultivating that sort of like leadership, right? And giving that know-how of, here's what these offices are, here's how you run for it, here's the process, here's how to fundraise. And I think honestly, seeing people like Gabby and Luis elected will kind of bring us into a new era, because right now people can't look up to the Tennessee legislature or other elected official bodies and say like, oh, I see me there. Like particularly people from the Hispanic community, right? They don't see that representation. But now that that's changing, I think that really lays the ground for kind of a new era where people say, you know what, actually, maybe I do have a voice. Maybe I could do this because someone else like me did. If that makes sense.
Hey, Noah.
One more thing. Sorry, Commissioner.
Okay.
There's a thing in Memphis, right, known as name recognition, right?
Yeah.
And how many Hispanic community leaders do we know have a large name recognition in the regular constituent voting base?
Mm-hmm.
Not that many. And so we have to figure out how to break that barrier of name recognition. How do we actually engage people and convince somebody, hey, even though you don't know me, even though I'm Hispanic and Latinx, I'm still running to represent your needs. I'm still running to represent, our best interests collectively, because I'm not just running for my people. I'm running for our people. I'm running for our community, right? And so that's one of the things that we need to be able to build that bridge.
Okay. And both of y'all mentioned something real quickly about the millennials and the younger generations, getting them involved. And so in voting and, running for office, we started to see a little bit of that, but as far as the voting, getting them out to vote, because, my generation, okay, we're dying off, and so how do we now instill not only the ability to run for office, but to vote, come out and vote?
It probably needs to start in the schools and in the community centers and with the young people, and sort of making it a rite of passage. You're going to turn 18. Yes, you get to vote. So I remember when my daughter turned 18, It was so exciting, and I took her to vote, and I took pictures, and I made a big deal. And this, again, this may not be the history that the family has, because if they weren't legally able to vote, they may not have that culture. So then the schools and the community centers need to really get onto the young people and get this excitement, this rite of passage. You're turning 18. When is your first election where when you can vote? Voter registration card, as important as a driver's license. The other thing that we need to remember is that the Hispanic community or Latino community um, runs very young. The older adults are a tiny percent. The majority of the Latino community are under 50. So this is another thing. It's also a great opportunity for the future, um, but it is also something we need to cultivate for the future. It's up and coming, but we do need to think about how do we engage the young.
But, and let me ask you this real quickly. And so, engaging the young, um, is there any outreach or any community involvement, nonprofits, outreach in getting young people excited about registering to vote in the Latina or the Hispanic community?
I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of after school programs that are sometimes um, designed to do violence prevention and other sorts of things. So we are imagine what it feels like as a young person if the first thing we do is, oh my God, potential criminal. And that's how you feel society sees you. So that's something we need to change as a society. Do we see our young people, particularly minority young people, as the future of our community, or do we see them as potential criminals and treat them like that and make them feel like that? And then we're surprised they're not engaged when they have this feeling of being uh, less than or undesirable. So I think we need to pivot in how we see young people. Do we see them as contributors, or do we see them as somebody that needs to be controlled? And at this moment, there is a lot of we need to control the young rather than we need to engage and excite the young.
Yeah, and I would say specifically when it comes to Hispanic youth, I know that Yuleni Escobar at Shelby, what is it? Man, I am blanking on the name of that organization. Memphis for All. Yes, Memphis for All, Votes for All. Yuleni Escobar is leading a great effort in our community, specifically registering community members to vote, and also targeting Hispanic community members. So I want to give a huge shout out to Yuleni for her amazing work in that. And I would say with the youth specifically, intersectionally, not just Hispanic youth, I would say the Equity Alliance is doing a really great job registering people to vote, getting people out there to vote. And not only that, but endorsing strong candidates. So shout out to Rachel Spriggs and the Equity Alliance team as well.
Thank you so much. And then also on the referendum, on the ballot, we have the 3 gun referendums, which the city council fought so hard to get put back on the ballot. So I was just wondering, because you all, I heard mention, somebody, I think it was Elena and Maria both mentioned about gun violence and things of that nature. And so I was wondering, is there any effort to educate on the communities about the referendums?
Again, no, and the referendums tend to be written in very complicated language. Several years ago, out of the blue and just for fun, I took one of the referenda and I put it through a Lexile analyzer to see the reading level that it was going to be. And it was more complicated than Ulysses, which is one of the most complicated works of literature ever. It was so complicated, people with graduate degrees had difficulty understanding it. So these need to be in very plain language, and we're not doing any effort to make them really plain. It needs to be super clear. And maybe your office can help with that. So when there is something, just they have a lot of information on. If you vote yes, this is what happens. If
Mhm.
you vote no, this is what happens. Because they even translating it into Spanish, if we go to the same level, that's going to be so high. So
Mhm.
we need to translate them into a language that is common for all of us and that is super clear. There is so much writing on these referendums that we need to make sure that the language is super clear, and again that people can see if you vote yes on this is exactly what will happen, and if you vote no on this is exactly what will happen. Because a lot of the times what happens is people look at those and they go, oh my god, I have no idea, and either they vote yes just because yeah, or they just don't vote, skip them because the language is so complicated.
Mhm.
So, and it's not only for Latinos, this is for everyone. We
Mhm.
need to make the language normal, everyday language, and really clearly, this is what will happen if you vote yes. This is what will happen if you vote no, because uh, I think they are done very complicated on purpose, quite frankly.
Mhm.
So
And
let's
as of now, I would say I haven't heard of an intentional training for the community regarding the referendums. I also know it's very recent news that we have been able to, we will be able to vote on this in November. But I will say that gun violence is a very important issue in the Latinx and Hispanic community in Memphis. I myself am. Our family, we lost a loved one to gun violence. My little brother, Eduardo Oceja, may he rest in peace, was gunned down in 2022. And he was only 18 years old. And a lot of us have experiences like that where we are facing grief because of gun violence, unnecessary and reckless gun violence. And so there is a lot of concern around, how do we make sure that weapons like this don't land in the hands of people who are only trying to wreak havoc in our communities.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I'm so sorry, Maria.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Noah.
yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt there. Yeah, I would say from what I noticed from living in Mexico for about 2.5 years, I think the gun culture here is a huge culture shock to a lot of like my students and my family, like friends here who are from other countries, because that's something they even talk about in Mexico. Like, aren't y'all afraid to go to school? Like, why do they shoot people at schools in the United States? Why is this happening? And so I think sometimes Americans don't understand how we are perceived in other countries. And so I think that would be really good to be able to have more of an outreach, maybe whether it be from the city of Memphis, if they send out just an educational mailer in English and Spanish about what are these referendums, here's what happens, like you said, if you vote yes, if you vote no, because I think this is an issue that a lot of people are really, talking about, are affected by, like Maria was talking about. So.
So we out campaigning, Noah. I'm sure the gun referendums come up. What are you hearing people are saying about the referendums, if anything? And as far as the referendums go, are you planning to also educate people in both in this, English and Spanish language?
Yeah, absolutely. We're educating about it, when we're going door to door. Like Maria said, it's still very recent. I think it was last week, maybe the week before, when the official, kind of decision came down about that. So most of what I've been hearing is about just the news updates so far about, is it actually going to be on the ballot? Is it not? And people kind of going back and forth about the process of it. And now that it's on the ballot, I think this is the time where we can have more of that conversation. All right, let's get this done. But yeah, and I think it would be helpful because, especially being this late in the game, there's not going to be any sort of independent campaign, being on either side of it. So I think maybe some, educational support from our city would be really helpful, because, they're not going to be able to start a whole campaign for it, in the next 49 days.
No, but it's your point. Yeah, maybe I'll reach out to the city council and see if they can do some type of mailers or since we're talking about it, what would be the best way, the quickest way to get the word out? Would it be through radio ads? Would it be through social media? What are your thoughts? Anybody?
I definitely think
Yeah.
that connecting with Hispanic media, local Hispanic media, connecting with Radio Ambiente, La Jefa, Memphis Noticias with Manuel Duran, and I have a whole media list I can send to you, Commissioner, if you would
Thank
like.
you.
But I just recently gathered that information, so I can definitely send you that media list. But
Okay.
there's a lot of viewers and a lot of followers for all of those different media personalities, and so I think that would probably be the best way to connect with them.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind sending that to me, and I will see if we can do a joint effort, the Shelby County Commission as well as City Council, to get the word out, to explain to Elena's address about breaking it down so that you understand if you vote this way, it means this. You vote this way, it means that, as well as translation. So that is something that I pledge to get together this week. And so, Councilman Smiley, if you're listening, you will receive a text message in an hour. Okay, I love that. Now, let me ask you all this real quickly. So, as a county commissioner, in my capacity, what barriers or what things that I do to support the Latina and Hispanic community, as well as an educator in the classroom? Because I think Noah stated there's some certain things that his school is doing, and not all schools are doing. And so I think that there needs to be some type of standardization, if you will, that all schools do these things. So if you all, and I'll just go around and I'll start with Noah. What are the things that your school is doing that's working for your communities?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, one thing is that all of our signs are bilingual. I think that's super helpful as far as, most of our schools are very big. And so a lot of kids, especially who are just transferring in, are still just trying to figure out how to get around the building. That is super helpful. Also making sure that our bilingual mentor positions are filled. Like as in my school, I believe at least high schools now, that's the case. But I do know some schools where those positions are still vacant. And they're not really actively trying to be filled. I think that is crucial. Those are super important supports for our students. I hang out there during my planning period sometimes, or my lunches, and sometimes just kind of help them out in the process. And they're constantly helping engage our families. And then just at the individual teacher level, I can recommend, if you're trying to translate some of your materials, use ChatGPT instead of Google Translate. ChatGPT has really good translation services, whereas Google will give you something really weird and very literal, and it'll be sometimes hard to understand. Yeah, and just, as teachers, the best we can, in those moments where we have time to really make language inclusivity part of what we do, I think that's just super vital. I have an advantage because I speak English and Spanish, so I can kind of just go back and forth. But I really appreciate just seeing all the teachers, at my school and other places put in that work.
Okay, going back to the bilingual mentor positions, are those paid positions or volunteer positions? Because I don't think we have any at my school.
Really? Okay, they're paid positions. Yeah. We have 2 at mine, which I thought was the standard. But yes, so super, super important. And I will say there's some schools, and I hate to say this, being negative, but a lot of kids who transfer to Overton as choice transfers are coming from other schools where they're expressly say that their administration doesn't like dealing with Hispanic kids or kids who speak other languages. And I can specifically mention Sheffield High School. Tons of our transfers come from there because they don't feel welcomed, much less accommodated. So.
And then also, when students are registering for school, for example, do you all have translators available at your school? I'm sure you do. But I just wonder if that is a standard practice. So we do have translators at that time. I was wondering if that's a standard practice.
Yeah, usually it's the bilingual mentors, the Spanish teachers, and any other staff that speaks Spanish. So they kind of put us to work, which is fine. We don't mind doing it. I will say, and it's not just an idea I'm saying right now, there's been discussions from other teachers. I do think there should be a stipend for knowing a second language, because inevitably you will be asked to do extra work, which is fine. And we all want to do that because we want to help those families, but it's extra work. So just an idea.
Okay. Okay. And who want to answer the next question as far as what can the county do to support or help or take down barriers for Latino and the Hispanic community?
Do you want to go, Maria, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I can jump in real quick. So I recently, back in March, Director Griffin Young with the Shelby County Community Services Division shared that there is a language line that Shelby County has access to. So I would say the biggest thing right now is potentially making sure that all employees who are directly facing and serving community know about this language line, are trained on how to access this language line, and are encouraged, and not only encouraged, but held accountable to using this language line, because it would be a Title VI violation to not provide services in the different languages that our communities are coming in and speaking. And this language line has access to over 260 languages, actually, and several of them are native to Latin America, right? So the Hispanic and Latinx community is so diverse. We don't only speak Spanish, right? We speak many different languages like Nahuatl or Mixteco, or, you know, languages that are native to the Americas, or Quechua, right? So, so fortunately, Shelby County government does have this available, but not enough people know about it. And so we need to make sure that people know about it, right? Like when they're going to get their tags, the clerks at the tag office need to know that there's a language line, right? Because there's always people having trouble communicating about tags, or, you know, even when they go and, you know, maybe file for a business or something like that, right? So we need to make sure that all Shelby County government employees are trained in the language line.
Okay. And also, I'll put out there real quickly that the EOC department, we have a division rather, and we need someone who speaks Spanish desperately, because I know a lot of the information, a lot of the pamphlets, to your point, are not translated in Spanish, and that's a huge issue. And so let me ask you all this: what's the best way to target the Latino community so that they would apply for these positions?
I would say definitely increasing pay, like Noah said.
And also all of the media that Maria mentioned, but there are a lot of times where people apply for these jobs and they may not have all the official requirements, and they would be excluded. So that's another thing. How good is good enough? If we are going to be reaching out to people, do they need to be perfect native speakers, or do we want somebody who can communicate and connect, or maybe they don't speak English perfectly? So maybe we need to be open to people who are culturally competent and may not be perfect. That may be one of the things that we need to do. Maybe they don't speak English perfectly, they speak well enough, and they speak Spanish. Is that a way to bring that opportunity? And what happens is that a lot of the times Latinos, and this happens to women and people who have been marginalized, they tend to feel, oh, if I don't do everything, if I don't fit all the or tick all the boxes perfectly, then I'm not good enough for this. And that's why they're not running for office. That's why they're not applying for these jobs. So maybe reach out in a way that is a little bit more open and more inviting, and saying, and maybe not being so picky. You know, we need somebody with 4 master's degrees and perfect scores at the Department of State level in both languages. Maybe we can be a little bit more open to other people.
Okay. Okay. So, Maria, I look forward to get information. Noah?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add something there, if you don't mind. I was just going to say one thing I've noticed with some of my friends who are applying to these positions, who are from the Latina community, is that sometimes there will be these requirements. For example, if you're wanting specifically for some of the community, are we offering these positions to people who have DACA, work permits, for example, who may not have been born in the United States? Like, is that one of the requirements? Because if that is, that's really exclusionary. Do you have to have a bachelor's degree? That could be really losing a lot of qualified people, who know the language well, who have the culture and everything, but it's just these like titles and requirements, technicalities.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes. Do they need to have a bachelor's degree?
Definitely. And to add to that, we do have professional immigrants who come in who have from their home countries, but those degrees are not accepted here because they're not seen as accredited. So we need to make sure that professional experience that immigrants are bringing is actually taken at face value, and not, because they didn't get that degree in a United States institution, it doesn't mean that they can't still provide the exceptional professionalism that is expected in the position for Shelby County government or any other local agency.
Okay, that is an actionable thing. I will get with the director of HR and work on that and changing that, because that is a good point. My stepmother, who just recently passed away, her degree was from Germany, and she could never transfer it over here, and so she had to start at low wages, and so that's a huge issue. So thank you for bringing that up. And we're closing down, so I'm going to do a little. I want you to have closing remarks, and this time I'm going to start with Maria.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much again for having me here. Happy Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month. I personally just like to identify as Latinx because Hispanic does identify with the Spanish language. And Spanish is not native to Latin America. As we all know, if we study history 500 years ago, Spanish was not native to Latin America. So anyways, that's why I have this as my background. This is Xochicalco in Mexico. It's one of the great cities, known as one of the cities of the Eternal Spring, close to Cuernavaca. So I highly encourage you, if you're able to visit, go check it out. It is a beautiful place. But also remember that we have a lot of rich diversity that is not necessarily tied to the Spanish culture. So making sure that we are grounded in what Latin America has to offer as we celebrate Latinx History Month, Heritage Month.
Thank you so much. And thank you for coming. Next, we have Elena.
Again, thank you very much. This has been a wonderful evening, and what a great opportunity to connect with you. I am very grateful that you're opening your office to this community and to all the community in Memphis. I think I'm grateful to you. And let's also remember the importance of the Latino community to our community. The Latino community is doing better and better. They're also becoming larger and larger. So a few years ago, the school district had about 13% Latino students. Today, in Memphis Shelby County Schools, 18%. Wow. So it's growing, and it's growing very rapidly. The census doesn't capture that, but also the median income of this community is growing. So this is a population that is going to be important. It's important politically, it's important economically, and we're also really nice people, friendly people who cook well.
Yeah. I agree, totally.
Culturally important. So I think we need to open more spaces for this community to thrive.
I agree. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Noah.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Sugarmon, for having me. I'm really grateful to be here, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month to everybody. And yeah, just almost repeating the last points, the Hispanic community is growing in our Memphis here, and is thriving economically. And just what I see from my own two eyes in the neighborhood around my schools, opening businesses, fixing up homes. And so I think there's so much vibrant, really community being built here right now in Memphis. And I'm really grateful to you for being on the front end and being active and making sure that there's not only inclusion of the Hispanic community, but also empowerment. And so I'm excited to see, you know, as we talked about earlier, as we see new leaders stepping up and actually taking office, you know, from that community, that that's only going to continue to grow and to prosper. And so again, just thank you for being in on the front end of that. And I'm excited to see what continues to build over the next several years.
And thank you again. And I wish you the best in running for office.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Muchas
You're
gracias.
De nada. And once again, I want to thank the listening community for joining us once again. And so next month, same time, same channel, Social Justice. We're live virtually every third Tuesday at 6 p.m. Thank you. Bye-bye.